Hello, my name is Dr. Sidney Freeman Jr., and this is Communiversity, an initiative that empowers Black young people with the tools and skills for personal and professional success. This program is inspired by the work of Minister Ronnie Vanderhorst, who had a vision to provide young adults with the basic skills that they need to survive and to thrive in this century. This program is also sponsored in partnership with the North Pacific Union Office of Seventh-day Adventists, and we are so thankful to them for their investment. So we want to introduce you to our special guest, Mr. Fred Bussey, who is president and founder of Icon Status. Just from the name of that company, you know he has some great things to share with us today. And we're looking forward to talking about entrepreneurship. So many of us are hearing about the importance of Black people becoming entrepreneurs. And so we wanted to bring someone who is the best at what they do to share about strategies in which to get into entrepreneurship. So with that, Fred, what's going on, man?
Sydney, it's good to be here with you, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am so excited, as I said before, that you're able to spend this time with us. And with that, my first question is, how does someone know if their business idea is good or has great potential?
It's a great question. One of the things that many people do, that one of the biggest mistakes that people make is launching a business without actually testing the idea. And these days you can test an idea pretty much for free, unless it's a product that requires a certain amount of investment to get it manufactured and things like that. But at the very minimal, at the basic level, what you want to do is you want to be able to launch what's called an MVP, a minimum viable product. What is the idea at its simplest form? What does it solve, and who do you solve it for? If you can make that offering to those people in the most simple, easy to convey way, and people are willing to pay for it in that form, then you know you have something. So, for instance, let's take something like a cleaning company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's a very easy example. People always need stuff that is cleaned. If you offer to clean someone's home or to clean their office building, etc., then and they're willing to take you up on that offer. You construct a deal, say how much they want to pay you for it. You know, you've got something that you can now turn and replicate, because you can go to other business owners or other homeowners and be able to do the same thing. If you have a software, for instance, an idea that it solves a particular problem, you want to be able to put that out there and say, hey, you know, one of the things that I often have my clients do, my clients are usually further along than a startup, but I would tell them the same thing that I would tell someone who is getting started initially, which is to go in to talk to the people that you want to sell this to and just ask them, you know, would this solve your problem? Or what's your biggest problem? What if I had this solution, how much would you be willing to pay for it? And the best vote that you can possibly get, the best vote of confidence, is when people say, I'll pay you money right now. Right. So if you can make that offer and they're willing to pay you, then absolutely, that's the cleanest, simplest way I would advise people to get started when it comes to an idea, being able to validate that idea before you actually go out there and register the business and get an EIN number, all those different things. Let's start with the basics. Do you have something that people want to pay for? Because ultimately, that's the real test of a business.
So as you were talking, I'm thinking about a 17 or 18-year-old that will watch this. And I'm wondering if there's people are telling them, there's some people that are telling them that their next move should be college or trade school. And then there's others, they're watching Instagram, they're watching TikToks, and they're being encouraged. Listen, you don't need college. Listen, just go out on your own. You have everything you need with AI and when other different platforms. Could you just talk about how a young person might think about making a choice whether to go into entrepreneurship just right away or do that along with going into school?
Well, I'll be clear. I think everyone, especially in our community, should at least consider starting a business. I think everyone should
Mm,
do it, if only for tax purposes. It gives you greater flexibility to be able to do that. If you're 18 and 19 years old and you're trying to decide if you want to go to college, 17 or 18, really, because you're,
mhm,
your junior or senior year, then I would encourage you to look at it this way. One of the things that our educational system does not really do is give young people the sense of who they are, right? So understand who you are and what your makeup is before you get to that point. We're talking about making an investment of potentially $250,000 on your
mhm.
education if you're just going to go to an undergraduate school in a relatively decent school, right? Between loans and things of that nature, you're going to make that sort of investment, and you want to make sure that you're getting your money's worth, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you're not going to make, I would say 10x of that in your chosen career, if you're not sure exactly what you want to do, then you might need to have some other choices, some other conversations. And there was a time when I probably would have said, I was kind of radical, thinking, you don't need college. And being a college graduate, I went to grad school. You know,
Mhm.
I understand the experience very well, and so weighing those things in the balance is important. It's harder to do that when you're 17 or 18. You don't know what you don't know. But
Yeah.
hopefully, what I would encourage them to do is to learn as much as you can about yourself. Uh, School isn't for everyone. It is a significant investment in terms of time and money. What I will say is this: one of the things that's underrated about a college education is the network capacity that you're going to be able to build, because you're going to be
Mhm.
rubbing shoulders with people who will be successful for years to come. And the relationships that you can build there with those people will be the most valuable thing that you can get. It's not the education, because the information is available pretty much everywhere. It's not like they're giving you different knowledge. They're not teaching you different math in Harvard that they are in Stanford or the University of Akron,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So all of the information is the same. Uh, you're going to get different teachers depending on where it is, and there's going to be a culture there. But most importantly, you need to consider the network that you're going to be able to build and the people that you'll have relationships with. So I've got relationships with guys who are doctors, lawyers, um, uh, entrepreneurs, community leaders, executives all around the country, all around the world, really. And I know these people on a first name basis because we shared experiences in the dorm. We sweated and played basketball together. We ate in the cafeteria
Yeah.
together. So we did life together for 4 years. And that common experience is a bonding one. And people get to know you who you are. And the beauty of social media now is that people get to experience you a little bit from afar, but you can still connect with these people. And so I would take it that you can really take your time and look at that, but look at the opportunities that it's going to afford you. And I'll circle back to my first point about knowing who you are, because
Yeah.
knowing who you are is going to help you to understand the path that you need to take. You're going to have multiple jobs. You're going to likely have multiple careers. You may even have multiple businesses over the course of the next 50, 60 years of your life. And so if that's the case, the people that you have in your circle is going to be instrumental in your capacity to be able to be successful no matter what you do. So college is definitely a consideration. I would say that the where you go to school is as important based on who the people are going to be that you're going to be around surrounding yourselves with.
So could you two things with that?
Sure.
One is you said something, the importance of what school you go to. So share a little bit about that, and then also if you could, what popped out in what you shared a little earlier was you said for tax purposes,
Mhm.
you would encourage young people to start a business. Could you kind of expound on that a little bit more?
Yeah. Okay. So two things. All right. So the first, I'll take the questions in order. When you're looking at the school that you want to attend, you want to look at who goes there, right?
Mhm.
Um, who are the people that I potentially have the opportunity to rub shoulders with? One of the reasons that we tend to look at Harvard and Ivy League university as such this tremendous advantage is because we've been taught to believe that the education there is more stellar. in reality, again, the information is not different.
Yeah.
You are going to get a certain level of teachers that are there, professors, and access to certain information. But the access to the information is less important than the access to the people, because you're
Yeah.
going to be rubbing shoulders with congressmen and senators and the highest leaders in the country, their children. And those people are going to grow up to be judges and lawyers. They're going to grow up to be CEOs of other companies. They're going to grow up to be statesmen and stateswomen. And so because of that, when you have that level of relationship, you're going to be able to attract that and keep that in mind. And so you're not going to get that at every school, but doesn't mean that you have to go to an Ivy League school to be able to get that experience and to get those relationships. But it does need to be consideration. And so wherever possible, what I would say is that when you're at school, whatever school you choose, you need to make sure that you're optimizing those relationships, building them, maintaining them through the course of your life, and understanding that the value that you're able to extract from that also means being able to pour into other people. And so as you become more valuable, you offer more value to those people. And as they become more successful, they offer more value to you. The other thing that I was saying about tax purposes, starting an entrepreneurship, your entrepreneurial journey. Business is a different vehicle than the normal 9-to-5 career that most people will embark on. And because of that, we don't really realize that the tax code is actually 95% constructed for business and business owners, and the rest of it is for the regular W-2 employee. So the tax code is approximately 6,000 pages now, maybe. And out of that, maybe 100, 150 pages are dedicated to the W-2 employee. The vast majority of it includes all of these other incentives of the tax code that are designed to help business owners be able to take advantage of the tax system and be able to employ it. The reason why is because the government wants to encourage business, and because business lobbies the government to help them be encouraged, incentivized in these various ways to make business easier. And so there are all kinds of tax advantages that you have as a business owner that you do not have access to when you are a W-2 employee. And so if you have a business, you have the capacity to be able to, at least, even if you have a 9-to-5 job and you have a business on the side, there are advantages that you can utilize in the tax code that will allow you to be able to grow wealth at a faster rate. Let's say that even if you had a part-time job that only paid you 10% of your salary, right? At a certain level, you're going to be able to take most of that money and be able to reinvest it in the stock market and other wealth building vehicles to be able to grow money. So while you have your job on the side, you can still be using this business as a way to grow your wealth and eventually maybe even free you from your 9-to-5 or create other opportunities for yourself and for your family.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Does a person that is thinking about going into entrepreneurship, do they need a business plan up front? And if so, how do you write one?
Yeah, so the short answer I would say is you don't necessarily need a business plan. You do need a plan, you need an idea, but the idea of a traditional business plan, as it's said, is really for banks. And that's when you're going to ask a bank for loans or for funding. That's because banks want to be able to have a certain level of certainty. Your business plan alone isn't going to be enough to get money from the bank, but it's a good start. I would say that going through the exercise of writing a business plan is a good one, but on a fundamental level, really I would have people to start with a 1-page business plan. And it's essentially, what is the problem that I'm solving? Who am I solving it for? What's my solution? How do I plan to be able to make money from this, right? How can I monetize it? And is it scalable? Meaning, for instance, if you're a babysitter and you want to start a babysitting business, how scalable is it for you to be able to sit more than one baby at a time or to sit multiple babies over the course of a week versus creating a babysitting app where now you can have teenagers and parents get connected and be able to link them together so that you can have And multiple parents, hundreds or thousands of parents can be able to find someone to be able to babysit their child and a trusted source, right? So that's just a basic example. But if you can write your business plan on one page and you could send it to somebody, basically like an elevator pitch as it's called, and you could say it to someone and they get it, they understand it, and they will be willing to invest in it or to buy that product or service from you, then again, it goes back to the MVP, the minimum viable product. You understand that you have something that at the very least is understandable and is either investable or is purchasable, if that's a word, purchasable. The people will be willing to purchase from you to get you to start. And then you can expand that structure from there. But at the very fundamental level, you need to make sure that it's just understood. This is my structure for my business. This is who I'm going to be marketing to. This is where I plan to take it. And then from there, you can kind of create some projections and some ideas of where you want to be able to go.
So as you were saying that, what was going through my mind is, as a young person, I may or may not have come from a family of means, right? And I have a business idea. I believe I'm talented enough to do it, but I may not have a lot of money. How do I attract the resources to start my business? Given that, yes, there can be some grants out there and maybe some other things, but things are getting harder out there. How might a person that does not have a lot of means, come from a lot of means, start a business?
Well, what I would tell them is that there's good news. That is that it's easier to start a business now than it ever has been. And it's easier to build wealth than it ever has been in the history of the world. There are more free tools available to people. You can learn anything you absolutely want to know on YouTube University, right?
Yeah.
You can, if you want to design graphics, build branding for your company, you can do that with Canva. If you want to be able to ideate or build some sort of app, even there are services that allow you to build websites, apps, using AI software. And there's a free tier of basically every one of these sort of services. I think it's more important to get clear on what it is that you want to be able to create, and then reverse engineer the path to be able to make that a profitable venture from day one. We always want to focus on profit, not just revenue, but we want to make sure that the money that you keep in your pocket is the money that you're going to be able to use to either reinvest or be able to create freedom for yourself and for your family. So those things are crucial. And if we get fixated on the money, then we lose sight of all the other opportunities that are out there. One of the things that we don't realize is that there are people out there who already have billions of dollars that understand that if you understand how the pathway to creating profitability is generated, you can always use other people's money, other people's resources, even other people's time as a payoff to be able to help you to build what you want to be able to build. So you don't need the money. You don't need to come from money. What you need is an open mind and a mindset that's hungry to learn and curious enough to be able to ask the right questions that get you the answers that you need to be able to start, just launch the thing and to start being able to build it.
So, as you say that, I'm sure that there may be someone saying, "Well, I got my idea, but I need to get started. I want to get started in a way that I'm on firm footing. So I want to legally set up my business in the right way. I want to have that foundation." Could you talk about kind of some of the steps that a person needs to think about, whether they want to start a nonprofit business or a for-profit business? Where could they start in getting their business legally started?
Yeah, so those things are pretty simple. You can get a it's called an EIN number, employee identification number, which is basically a social security number for your business, right? You can get that for free online through the government. You can register your business and get a business account and things of that nature. But what I would tell people to do before you do any of that stuff. Don't worry about the legal stuff first. Worry about the money stuff. Here's why. Because if it's not a viable business, you take all the time and energy to create the business or to get the money to be able to incorporate it, for instance, or to get your LLC done. Those things sound good and they're really official. They don't add anything to your bottom line, right? So start with the money first. Start with the idea and putting that into the marketplace so that you can, again, test it, make sure that it's viable, and then use your business to fund all those other things that you need. If eventually you need to hire an attorney, if eventually you need to hire someone to establish your business, all those different entities, building a website, none of those things matter until you actually have a business that is making you money and creating revenue and profitability, so you can be able to use that as a funding source for all the other things you want to build from. Because trust me, I work with clients all the time who've done those things. They've even made some money, but then they look around and we get fixated on all these other things that we think are supposed to be important. None of that stuff matters. It doesn't matter if you're not making money. So I would say focus there. You can always hire somebody to walk you through the steps. And there are a lot of resources you can use to be able to just file the information yourself. It costs you about $250, even that, to be able to register your company with the state and with your county in terms of getting a business license, things of that nature. But beyond that, you don't really need any money. And I wouldn't even say start there first until you know you have something that is sustainable. So if your business can't make you the money to be able to pay for those sources, those resources, then you need to revisit what the idea of the business is anyway.
So with that, what about target audience? How does a person identify that target audience for their business?
Yeah, so you'll hear people talk about using the word avatar or your ideal client. When we work with our clients, we define an ideal client as the person you provide the most value for. And the word value, I like to flip that around and say the greatest advantage. So who's the person you can create the greatest advantage for through your service or your business, right? And another thing you'll hear people talk about is creating a niche, right? Or finding your niche in that business. We like to say find your niche that's so small it doesn't even feel big enough. Right. But when you get super, super specific, I like to draw a diagram of a bullseye. Right. So you got a target on there. You mentioned target audience. Well, if you had the whole target, right, and the bullseye is in the center, you want to be able to find something that is so small, so clear that your ideal client knows that you're talking to them. Right. What a lot of people will say, they'll talk about demographics and things of that nature and say, well, my audience is women between the age of 35 and 55 who maybe they want a hair product or something like that. Well, what I would suggest is that you get greater results from being more and more specific, because when you talk about a very specific person and with a very specific solution, what you do is you can now own the whole board, because everybody can see clearly how they can get advantage from what you have to offer, versus you trying to talk to everybody and then nobody knows if it's for them. So they're not clear. But if you're saying my product is for 36-year-old women who are single, who are very athletic, work out 4 to 5 times a week, have 2 or 3 small children, they don't have a lot of time to go to the beauty salon, but they want somebody who they need some sort of a solution to be able to help them to preserve their hair between salon visits. And this is something that our products does, is a daily maintenance, or it could be a bow, whatever the case may be. But now it becomes very, very clear, because every other woman who has some aspect of that in their lives can now apply that solution and see the advantage that they get for using it. So the more clear, the smaller the niche is, the more direct that target, the easier it is for people to be able to understand, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I need.
With that, there's often people are as they're starting out, they're wondering what tools or platforms might they invest in to kind of manage their business. So kind of the finances that come in and things, just not necessarily, they don't have the money to build, bring in a team per se, but what are some basic tools or platforms that may be helpful for young entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so there's a tool or a platform for just about anything. I would think that
Yeah.
the thing you want to do is you want to look at what it is that your business does. If it's an online business, for instance, there's all kind of platforms like Shopify, which allows you to basically set up a website with a back end so people can order things from you directly there. Shopify is about $29 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be able to utilize that. Uh, Canva allows you to be able to design different elements of things that you need for it. There's tools like Fiverr or Upwork.com that allow you to be able to hire people on a job by job basis. So let's say it's not a particular skill set that you have, you can hire somebody for as little as $5 a job or more to be able to do things like videos or branding or graphics or whatever the case may be. So you have those options there as well. And then what I would say is that continue to explore. As you get into the ecosystem, you're going to find that the algorithm is going to start sending you more tools. And so the one thing that you want to be able to do is to be able to sift through that and not get overwhelmed, but trying to chase every tool and become a master of all these different things. You want to simplify and understand exactly where your money is coming from, as they say, where your bread is buttered, and then use the tools that most directly help you to make revenue first, right? And then from there, be able to expand. Because again, there's a tool for just about anything you can imagine now, right? But you want to be able to make sure that you can move as efficiently as possible. You're going to want and a lot of the tools you can use for free, such as Google Drive, right? Because Google
Yeah.
Drive allows you to create all kinds of forms. It allows you to be able to invoice people if you need to. You can set an account through Stripe.
Mm-hmm.
People will pay you through Cash App, whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of different tools to be able to get revenue from, so that people can pay you. That's one of the things you definitely want to make sure that people can pay you in as many ways as possible. When you're starting out, it may be cash, but eventually you're going to open a bank account. So having that EIN number and things like that to be able to set that account up is going to be important. And those tools are available as well. Even if you're not sure, you can simply go to your local branch of your bank and just ask them, hey, I want to start up a business account. What are the things that you need from me to be able to do that? Even if you start using what I would recommend is that even though some people may start using their personal business account first, I would say find the information so you can always start on that part of it on the right foot, which is keep your business separate from your personal. And that's a great practice. You want to practice good business financial hygiene.
So with that, because I think that leads right into the next question of the risk that people take in entrepreneurship. What's some of the biggest risk that people take in entrepreneurship, and how do you mitigate taking losses and dealing with challenges that come with taking risk?
Well, I think it's about how you categorize risk, how you define risk, because we all have different categories of risk. For some people, starting a business feels like the riskiest thing they can ever do, but they'll jump out of an airplane and parachute, whereas somebody else may feel like they would never do that. I think that you weigh the cost. What is it costing you not being able to have this business and being able to build financial stability and sustainability for your family, for this generation and many others to come? So I think if you weigh that on the balance, you're going to be able to find that it's less risky than you're thinking, right? It's more risky to stay as you are, to stay the same in a world that is changing more and more rapidly. If we look at, we're recording this at the end of April in 2025. Life is now significantly more expensive than it was in January, and even more significantly expensive than it was a year ago. Life is only going to get more expensive because that's how time goes. It goes forwards. And so if you're standing still with the same job where you're looking at a 4% raise on your job, hopefully every year over year, but inflation is happening and tariffs are happening. And so life is costing you 10, 20, 30% more than it did year over year. That means that you're 25, 26% in the hole every year. You're going backwards and rapidly. So when we talk about income inequality and things of that nature, one of the reasons why income inequality exists and continues to grow or expand in that gap is because, in essence, it's just math.
Yeah.
If I'm a millionaire, I can take 10% of my wealth and invest it at $100,000 a year. Whereas if you make a $50,000 a year and you take 10%, that's only $5,000 a year. So you're already 20 times smaller in terms of the amount you can invest, right? And when you have expenses, you have a smaller margin for error, right? If
Mhm.
life gets more expensive for me as a millionaire, it doesn't nearly affect me nearly as much as it does if I'm making $50,000 a year. Every little bump on the road hurts so much more. So it
Yeah.
actually restricts my capacity to be able to invest. And so when you talk about risk, it's, well, how much time are you willing to continue to be at that same level? So there's always going to be effort and energy expended. There's always going to be revenue that needs to be expended. What I would say is that, again, find the minimum valuable option that you can create for the marketplace with the least amount of cash flow spend and things of that nature. Figure out your quickest pathway to cash. And from
Mhm.
there, you can scale up. And then when you want to do it, when you're looking at the risk, it's not so much about what you're losing. We want to focus on not making the wrong decisions versus always having to make the right one. Right. So how can I minimize my errors? Right.
Yeah.
Not how can I always have to be dead on target. If I can find the thing that I need to be able, that always needs to get done. For instance, one of the questions that I'll ask my clients is, what's the one thing you can do that by doing this one thing, your business can continue to grow no matter what, right? If you knew what that thing was, what would that be? And then when you kind of zero in on that target, it allows you to be able to see, oh, okay, if I do this thing, no matter what happens, my business is always going to continue to grow. Focusing on that thing means that my business will always continue to grow. That's a key way of being able to mitigate your risk. You know, so we
Mhm.
talk about, a bias for the upside. Like, how do I make sure that the upside is optimized and the downside is minimized? And that's really about getting the perspective, being really clear on who your ideal client is and the targets that you have in place. Being able to have make sure that those targets are in place about who your ideal client is, who you're calling out to, and being very, very clear about how you can distinguish yourself from everyone else. That's another great way to be able to minimize risk. There's no more valuable number than one. If there's only one of you in the marketplace, only one of you in the world, then there's nothing more valuable than you, right? So
Mhm.
everybody has to come to you and to your business to be able to get what you have to offer in the way that only you can offer it. So that clarity that you have is another way of being able to mitigate risk, because it lets you be able to set your own marketplace, right? If you want me,
Mhm.
you gotta come to me, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a baseline for a framework for how I would think about risk and the things that are involved in that. It's really a mental game when it comes down to it.
Mhm.
Most people get in their own way when it comes to starting or launching a business or growing a business. It's You can never grow beyond your capacity as a leader, and the business is never going to grow beyond your capacity. So the more you grow as a leader, the more your business is going to grow. So growing your mindset, growing your skill set, leveling up your skill set, because you want to move from being a technician to a business owner at some point. And so
Mhm.
understanding those different shifts, right? I talk about the 5 levels of leadership in my business. I won't go into all that now, but there's 5 levels of leadership that go all the way from the startup phase all the way to the $1 billion plus phase. And so in that, there's a different transition that every leader needs to make. This understanding that there's going to be transitions. And so you can't get to that next level if you, as the owner, are not willing to do that. And that's the most important way to minimize your risk and to minimize the loss factor when it comes to expenditure of time and resources.
So we're rounding out our conversation, but have two more quick questions. And one question is, how do you deal with the highs and lows of business? I know you're an experienced business person. And
Mhm.
so could you share with us how you may have dealt with times where you've had challenges with revenue and supply chain and those kinds of issues? And then how did you deal with times of plenty when things were going well? Just kind of share some tips around what you've learned, whether high or low.
Yeah, one thing I think is that you have to remember that business is never linear. There is this notion out there that business can work like a job where, okay, great, I'm going to get to $10,000 a month or $25,000 a month. And you'll hear these ads on the internet talking about that, right? Oh yeah, if you want to make $20,000 a month, this is the one thing you need to be able to do. The fact of the matter is, there's no such thing as any business that's making exactly the same amount of money every month. It goes up and it goes down because that's the nature of the world, right? And so you want to be able to have a trajectory where you can continue to grow and continue to improve. But the thing that we always share with our clients, and I've learned to do myself, right, is you want to be able to have a support system around you that allows you to be able to do that. I have an advisor for my business. We advise other businesses on how to grow their businesses. Having somebody who can help you to do that, because entrepreneurship is lonely. There's not a lot of people you can talk to about it. About 1% of the entire population is an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And so rarely can you talk to your spouse or to your pastor or to your family members about it. It's kind of a place where you seem to exist in your head. Being able to have someone that you can have clear-headed, clear-eyed conversations with on a consistent basis is invaluable for you, invaluable for me. The other thing you want to be able to do is understand that because business is not linear, we want to focus on progress, not perfection, right? How can we continue to improve that business over time? Right? We talk about becoming 1% better every day. A lot of people will use that metric. The key is, how do you do that? And then how can you make that your focus? One of the things we share with our clients is the rule of 70, right? The rule of 70 says that anything that is improved by at least 1% for 70 days in a row will double in its output after the 70th day, which means that if you are an entrepreneur and you're focused on, let me just improve this process, or let me just improve this one thing by 1% alone every single day, after 70 days, like two months and 10 days, essentially, you're going to be double that output. And the beautiful thing about it is, one, when you get to day 71, you're starting at twice that. So when you get to day 140, you're 4x where you were in terms of output. And then by the time you get to day 210, you're 8x that output, right? So the power of consistency allows you to realize, okay, I can't get too high or too low on anything that's going on. I have to be focused on continuously improving myself as an owner. And then the other thing is that because you are consistent, consistency in human beings creates these quantum leaps and these shifts that happen. So there's going to be one day when you're going to get 5%, 10%, 25% better, right? So that compresses the time in which you're going to double that output. And then there's going to be other periods in that time you're going to have a bump and you're going to say, okay, let me just focus on 1%. And then it's going to click again. And you're going to get a 35 or a 50% jump. And the time compresses again. And so what we see is that if we're just consistent and everything stays the same in our consistency, then we can be 36 times where we were at the end of the year. But that time could be compressed if we just maintain that focus on being consistently in progress, always focus on getting better, being the best version of ourselves, being better than we were yesterday. That's the real key to that. So that's what helps me. And then, like I was talking to a client this morning, one of the things that we can do as human beings, period, is that we're so brutal with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Those people who start businesses have high expectations. And so it can be very easy to beat yourself up for not being more successful, for not being this version of yourself that you've imagined you to be. Mm-hmm. But if you can simply just have more love and more grace for yourself, celebrate your wins, start to build an internal winning culture inside your mind, right? Create practices that you can incorporate that allow you to be able to build on that. Be kind to yourself, because we're going to grow and flourish where love and positivity, are in abundance. And it's very difficult to be able to do that when we are fighting ourselves and judging ourselves for not being where we wish we were. So that's something that I really work hard for myself on doing, continuous improvement, being more loving and cultivating internal winning culture. And it's really been beneficial in being able to weather the storms. I'm an entrepreneur now. This is my 25th year of entrepreneurship. So
Wow.
it's yeah, when I think about it, it's like, man, I've been doing this for a long time. And I too did not grow up in a family of entrepreneurs. I did not come from a place of money. But to be able to do this year after year, it's really been a blessing. And I couldn't imagine doing it any other way.
Well, thank you so much for the wealth of wisdom that you share with us on this platform. We really appreciate it. I'm sure there are people that will want to get in contact with you after watching this particular episode. What are some of the ways in which people could reach out to you and engage with you?
Yeah, man, absolutely. I am available anywhere on social media. I think it's probably the easiest way. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, even Twitter, or X as it's called now. You can find me there directly, Fredrick Bussey, Frederick Douglass Bussey. I'm Fredrick.Bussey on Instagram. But Facebook, I have a free Facebook group called the 7-Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind. You can apply to join there as well. It's for entrepreneurs who want to build a 7-figure plus business. And
Wow.
we have a number of free resources there, master classes, talk on the trainings and things of that nature to be able to support people in their journey to be able to launch and to be able to scale and grow.
And you said you have a YouTube channel that people can engage also?
Yes, YouTube channel. I think you're going to share the link. Icon status is the YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yep. We're continuing to expand and build on that. I have a couple of podcasts that we have platformed there as well. Breaking Orbit, which is more of a personal development for leaders and entrepreneurs, and Power Lunch, where we interview successful entrepreneurs and leaders in the marketplace.
Well, Fred, thank you so much for this time that you shared, this knowledge I've gained as an entrepreneur, as someone who has both a nonprofit and a for-profit business. These concepts have been reaffirming, but also have sharpened my understanding on some things I need to do as I move forward. And I'm sure that is the same for my audience. So thank you again. And thank you to the audience for being here. We hope to continue to bring you the best in professional and personal development so that you can make a major impact for our community. Have a blessed rest of the day.